Hello everyone, my name is Colleen Burgess. I'm from London, the Little London, Ontario in Canada, and here to talk to you today about a library fail event that we hosted there and some of the positive outcomes from that event. That's me. So who are we? Western University is a dispersed branch group of libraries. We have about 50 or so librarians who work across the system. And we have quite a variety in subject areas and in specialist libraries. And I want to talk to you specifically about the work of the teaching and learning community in that system. So in the 3 years that I've worked at this library, I would define our teaching and learning committee as a reporting structure. Typically, we get together once a month, and all of the librarians who have information literacy instruction as a part of their portfolio get together to talk about the projects that they're working on, specifically projects like developing online learning objects, professional development activities, and this sort of thing. We report on all the good work that we're doing to support teaching and learning, and then we adjourn. So the elephant in the room, what I want to talk to you about today and what we endeavored to fix with this library fail event was this elephant in the room, which is that we don't actually ever get down to talking about our teaching. So we talk about all of the ways in which we support teaching, but we never get around to the successes and the failures that happen in the classroom. So my first career was also in education. I was a secondary school teacher of English for a number of years prior to coming to academic libraries. And when I came to academic libraries, the culture shift was really dramatic. In the education system, teachers in Canada anyway are meeting almost daily to talk about the failures that are happening in the classroom, whether that's a new approach that you're trying or at-risk students that you're struggling to support in a meaningful way. Really, you're looking to your colleagues almost daily for support and guidance on how they're managing the same challenges you're facing. When I came to academic libraries, that dialogue just wasn't happening. It was really surprising to me and one that was difficult to adjust to. I would say that it almost felt like a personal or an intimate question to ask how your teaching was going to another colleague. So it was something that I felt really invested to address and to fix if we could. So as the chair of the professional development committee within this teaching and learning committee, I brought this to our subcommittee one day and said, you know, how can we shift this really rigid reporting structure? We just go around, all the chairs speak about what we're doing, and then we adjourn. No real talking about teaching and learning going on. And one, you know, that would really support us to think about our teaching as a place for experimentation and of course a place that failure is taking place. So we looked at the literature. There's a really growing trend in the US to host events similar to the one that we're at here today to talk about failure and to encourage one another to address our failures and look at them as positives in that they do indicate that we're engaging in a culture of experimentation. So we looked at the literature and we decided we'd host this event, which we called #LibFail. Our goal was to have a forum where we're not talking about, you know, how many our, you know, stats increase on our library research guides or, you know, our new online learning object that we're building, but rather to talk about the successes and failures happening in the classroom and to try to support that culture of experimentation in our teaching. So our underlying assumption in building this event was that sharing your failures requires trust in yourself, but more importantly, trust in your colleagues. You have to be okay that you don't just put yourself out there and people laugh at you or tell you that your failure is avoidable or illegitimate in some way. So we needed to facilitate that trust when we set up the event. So here are the steps that we took. So submission of an anonymous failure was your ticket into the event, and we had dozens and dozens of submissions. So it was clearly something that people had an appetite for, and we were glad to see that. All teaching failures were submitted anonymously so that they could be discussed objectively. The submissions were then grouped into themes, and there were quite obvious themes that emerged right away, so we thought this is great. People are having the same kinds of challenges, and they'll be able to get together and talk about them in a meaningful way. It really illustrated for us, too, how common all of our teaching challenges are. Could I just see, show of hands, how many in the room teach information literacy as part of their portfolio? Okay, quite a few. So we invited, also this was quite key, we invited notable teaching and learning scholars to come and speak about their own failures at the event. This is how we kicked off the event, and we thought this was really successful at breaking the ice and getting people confident that, of course, in teaching there's successes, but there's quite a few failures as well. And I think it really freed people up to get into talking about failure. And then we spent the time in session brainstorming what sort of additional supports we would need to build what we have now, which is a community of practice around teaching and learning. And it included things like structured time to get together to talk about failures. So I'll share a few of them with you. They're anonymous, so anyone who might watch this recording later at home, your name is not there. So when the faculty decides without your input that all you need is 20 minutes to teach the students how to become information literate, whatever that means. So we added this to a theme of self as teacher. We noticed a really clear theme that there was a challenge in a number of the submissions. I think that many of us related to, maybe some of you in the audience relate to as well, which is when you're not the primary instructor on record within a course that you're going into, it's difficult to negotiate for the things that you need so that you can make a meaningful plan and assessment and evaluation of student learning in information literacy. So viewing yourself as a teacher, one who's a professional who can say, no, that's an unrealistic expectation, and make that negotiation with faculty was a theme we were seeing over and over. Another challenge, when you structure your assessment in a way that invites too general comments, such as, great class, and ultimately you gain no qualitative data that demonstrates evidence of learning. So this was coming up quite a lot too, so how we actually structure our assessments gives us good or no indicators of learning. So we grouped this under assessment and technology failures. We had a number of people who just submitted failures of technology, like, oh, the PowerPoint didn't work, or there was no microphone, or there was no whiteboard. But primarily we're getting assessment failures in this theme. So people got together around a table to discuss some of these anonymous failures and had quite a good laugh at just how frustrating it can be to do all of this planning work, get into the environment, and realize too late that you're not going to take away anything from it that can demonstrate their learning. And lastly, when students don't translate the skill you taught and that they practiced in class into the research assignment, so those of you who are scaffolding classes toward an assignment, and you're really looking forward to seeing how the students fare in the assignment since you've been scaffolding their teaching in this way, and ultimately they don't do the work that they did in class in the assignment. So this can be a difficult and a challenging one. It's one that we found the colleagues were getting together to discuss, better ways to engage with their faculty members, to have a more meaningful dialogue about what's happening in that practice gap, where they can perform that skill or demonstrate that skill or that knowledge within the class that you're teaching, but when it comes to the assignment, they're really not following through and doing that work again. So this translated into a great discussion overall about engaging with faculty and seeing each other as equal partners, ones who can take a look at the final assessment or those who are even marking the final assessment, and talk about how to make changes year over year. So we thought the event was quite a success. We received a lot of positive feedback from our participants, and this year we're hosting 6 community of practice events that meet some of the needs that were identified in that session. So several of them had to do with partnership and networking opportunities. So folks really enjoyed this kind of structured time, so we've hosted more of those to get together. Some of our junior peers identified that they would like more mentorship opportunities, so they are looking for someone to structure for them an opportunity to meet with a mid-career librarian to talk about their failures, among other things, that they're experiencing and how someone else is engaging with those problems. And we thought this was really important because in the absence of talking about your failures, it really is a compounded pressure for junior colleagues to speak about their failures if their senior colleagues are certainly not talking about their failures. So we've started this opportunity, and we're hoping to see that grow. And lastly, we're primarily looking for just those structured opportunities to stay ahead in the discipline. So something as simple as just booking the space, booking a table or a room, and inviting people to that table to talk about something that they had read in the literature recently, or just to hold space to do that work themselves was a value that was identified by a number of colleagues. So I think to us, this spoke to the sort of glorification of busy that we're seeing in academia, where folks are really not even having the time to stay ahead of the teaching and learning literature. So simply just by hosting that space or booking that space, inviting people to the table, our colleagues felt that that would really meet their need. So thank you so much for your time and for your attention. I lastly just want to thank my collaborators on that project, Kim McPhee, Roxanne Izzard, Rachel Sanderson, Monica Fazakas, and Darian McQueen. And thank you so much again for your attention.